The Bristol city motto is Virtute et Industria, which I suppose really means we work hard and we're virtuous in the bargain, because we natives do pronounce it Virtute et Industrial. Here's a song about it.
Oh, we be Bristol kiddies, we comes from Bristol city, where all the blokes is handsome and all the birds is pretty. We're proud of our own town, it never gets we down, and we got a little motto what we sings up Emister down. Oh, Virtute et Industrial, 3 cheers for Novers Hill. If the city don't win Saturday, perhaps the Rovers will. Virtute et Industrial, shout it to the neighbour. Virtute et Industrial, in city down to labour. Now we be living well, bad times is in the distance. We lives it up like hell on national assistance. It ain't that we do shirk to do a bit of work, but if they could live without it, well, who'd be such a burk? Oh, Virtute et Industrial, we be such sober people. Bristol's like a girt big church with a 1,000-foot glass steeple. Virtute et Industrial, no drunks is ever seen. Virtute et Industrial, well, these knows what I mean. Let progress be our watchword, hooray for all the planners. They keeps the traffic going and never minds the tanners. From Lulsgate Dickastair to Paris now be air, but the buses down Old Market's enough to make ye swear. Oh, Virtute et Industrial, Cardiff's now much nearer. They'm gonna print the Evening Post in Welsh to make things queerer. Virtute et Industrial, sing Nostra Yaki Da. Virtute et Industrial, what's think of thee, oh ah. With one-way streets and flyovers, who knows which way we're facing? As they've seen our brand new bridge down in Cumberland Basin, the cars goes by like thunder, up and round and under. Where they goes no bugger knows, and 'tain't no bleeding wonder. Virtute et Industrial, our town'll last forever. If we can't build the Concorde, we'll buy it on the never. Virtute et Industrial, who got 10 million quid? Virtute et Industrial, well, 30 best then, kid. The best of Bristol luck to the mayor in corporation. He just come back from France, a credit to the nation. Now mining keep it dark, but they reckon the old town clerk brought back they follies burgeries in exchange for Ashton Park. Oh, Virtute et Industrial, up the downs on Sundays. We spent the rent on Saturdays, down Nelson Street on Mondays. Virtute et Industrial, may Bristol never fail. Virtute et Industrial, till we maul out harness Vale.
That fanfare was played by the Bristol City Trumpeters. Oh, yeah, we got our own trumpeters, you know. And we got our own county. Oh, yeah, Bristol is a city and county, you know. You see, King Edward III, now he granted Bristol a charter in 1373, making it a county of its own. As a matter of fact, he gave us this as a reward for supplying ships for the war against France. That's what it says in the guidebook, so I suppose it must be right. Aren't them bells lovely? The bells of St Mary Redcliffe Church they are. 'Tis a beautiful church, I reckon. Not only me reckon either. The first Queen Elizabeth, you know, good Queen Bess. She liked the place too. She said it was the fairest, goodliest and most famous parish church in England. That's what she said. Let's see what the guidebook says. Dates from 1290. The boy poet Chatterton was born in a house which is still standing directly opposite. Samuel Coleridge and Robert Southey were both married here. Here, this bit's interesting. It says, the church was rebuilt by William Canning the Elder in the 14th century. William Canning the Younger, one of the richest merchants in Bristol, twice Member of Parliament and Mayor of Bristol 5 times, gave up all his worldly possessions in 1467 to be a priest, and he sang his first Mass in St Mary Redcliffe Church. This event, it says here, is commemorated every Whit Sunday by the Rush Sunday service, when they strew the floor of the chancel with rushes in medieval fashion, and the Lord Mayor and Corporation attend the service in full civic dress. If you happen to be walking round the beautiful quiet streets of Clifton and you heard those peacocks, well, you probably think, that's if you were a stranger, that they was in the garden of some mansion or something. Well, as a matter of fact, they're in the Bristol Zoo. And that cry has become a familiar sound in the air over Clifton for many a long year now. The gardens were opened in 1836 by the Clifton and West of England Zoological Society, so it says in the book. The zoo is now famous all over the world for its skill in breeding animals in captivity. What with its lovely flowers and trees as well, and all that, and the animals, it takes a bit of beating when you compare it with other zoos, I can tell you. Now this, what you're going to hear now, is the opening ceremony of the Pie Powder Court. 'Tis really a French name meaning dusty feet, pied poudre or something. And in medieval times, they used to settle disputes on fair or market days on the spot. You see, the merchants used to come into this old cattle market on their way into Bristol from the Chippenham London road. So, of course, that's why they had dusty feet by the time they got this far, you see. And if there was any squabbling among them or anything like that, the matter could be sorted out there and then at this court. 'Tis a pity, but they don't hold this ceremony any more now.
All manners of persons who have anything to do at this court of the Pie Poultry held and kept here this day in the old market, draw near and give your attention.
London have got its Big Ben, but we got our Great George in Bristol. This is the bell in the tower of Bristol University. It's called Great George after Sir George Oatley, who was the architect of the great Gothic tower containing the bell. This tower was completed in 1925, it says in the book, and the opening ceremony was performed by King George V with Queen Mary. That's the sound of a ship on the River Avon as it passes under the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Of course, if they close the city docks, all the big merchant ships won't come any further in than Avonmouth. So that sound is something you may not hear much longer when you're standing on the suspension bridge. We Bristolians, of course, take this suspension bridge more or less for granted, but strangers come from miles to walk over the bridge or gaze up at it from the road along the gorge 245 feet below. Of course, I expect you know the bridge was designed by Brunel. It's 728 feet long and was completed in 1864, it says in the guidebook. That was after poor old Brunel had died, of course. The iron chains that the bridge is suspended from were originally used in the Hungerford Suspension Bridge over the Thames at Charing Cross in London. This bridge was demolished in 1861 and the chains were brought here for the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Over the front porch of Christ Church in Broad Street, in the very heart of Bristol, you'll see the quarter-jacks. They're two mechanical men put there in the 18th century, and every quarter of an hour they strike the bells over the clock. The poet Robert Southey who was born in nearby Wine Street and was baptised in Christchurch, often used to stop and see and hear these figures strike the quarter hours. Funny thing about it is the Corporation of Bristol loans the quarter jacks to the church for £0.50 a year. Bristolese is what I really call Anglo-Saxon gone berserk, so that cassand is canst thou not, and bissand is beest thou not, and ussant is wouldst thou not. As a matter of fact, thee bist, of course, is pure Anglo-Saxon, as compared with the German du bist thou art. And as a matter of fact, if you look in the British Museum, you will see the Lindisfarne Gospels, which were written by the monks of Holy Island over 1,000 years ago, which actually says, Our Father, which bist in heaven. So when we say thee bist, we're only about 1,000 years out of date. Now they say that we put an L on the end of words ending in a vowel, like Africa, India and China. Now you'll find if you listen very closely, it isn't so much an L as a sound that I would spell A-W, or. So you have Bristol, Kettle, Bottle, Violo. One peculiar habit we have in Bristol is, and also in the surrounding districts, is to make a statement in a questioning tone of voice. This is really rather polite because it shows that we're sort of saying, correct me if I'm wrong, we're being rather modest about it. Now, ladies who take their children to clinics very often use this kind of voice. They usually go and say things like, he come with his head, or I brought him with his feet. As a matter of fact, a girl I know who is a clerk, or a clerk as they call it, down at one of the clinics in Bristol, said a lady came in the other day with a little boy who had cotton wool in both ears. And she said to the clinic clerk, he come with his ear rolls? She said, he can't hear a thing, he got wax in both his ears. You can't hear nothing, what I'm saying, can you, my love? No, he can't hear nothing. So the girl said, could I have his name and address, please, mother? She said, about his ear rolls, my lover. He can't hear nothing, he got wax in both his ears. You can't hear what I'm saying, can you, my love? No, he can't hear nothing. So the girl said, no, I want to know his address and his name and his date of birth and all that. So finally, the clinic clerk, with great difficulty, managed to get down the name and address and height and weight, but she still hadn't got the date of birth. So she said to the mother, could I have his date of birth? She said, about his year olds, my love. She says, no, I want to know, when was he actually born? Oh, his date of birth, his birthday. Oh, 24th of November, my dear. So the clerk wrote down 24th of November, 19... She said, oh yes, but which year? She said, I told you, both bloody years. Now you may say, if we make a statement in Bristol in a questioning tone of voice, what happens when we really do ask a question? Well now, in this case, our voice still goes up at the end, only it goes up very high indeed. So in order to do this, I'll have to use a Bristolese speaking lady's voice, because they're ever so sloppy like that, you know. Oh, have you? Not like the blokes, they're more more brutal, you know, they sort of want to give you a suck when I kiss her. But the ladies are very sloppy like that. As a matter of fact, I saw two cleaners coming out of an office quite recently, and one said to the other, all right, Eld? And the other one said, yeah. She said, how's the back then, Eld? She said, still got it. And you know, and then you get the kind of lady who goes to Weston on a bank holiday. They always sit under the pier, this kind of lady. I don't know why they sit under the pier, but they always do, whether it's nice weather or nasty weather. And this kind of lady that I shall demonstrate always has two very essential people with her. One is a little girl called Sandra. Another is a lady about her own age, and she divides the day up between trying to stop Sandra from mucking about and trying to tell her friend about her operation. It goes like this. Sandra, don't you touch that doggy, mind you, bite he. I'll smack the head for you if he bites he. You stroke the other end, you bite he there. I gotta watch her, see, only she strokes all the... Leave it alone, Sandra. I'll bloody paralyse you if I comes over there to you in a minute. Well, what I was going to say is I was going to tell you. First, leave it alone now, Sandra, you bite he, mind. I won't have no sympathy with you if he bites your finger off. You wait till I get CO, my girl. Well, I got to keep on to her. What I was going to say was, first of all, I had all my teeth out. Yeah, I had all my teeth out. And I was took ever so bad. Went down the doctor's. You know, a doctor got that lovely surgery, got all that new furniture, all them tubercular chairs and all that. Leave it alone now, Sandra. I tell you mine, I won't have no sympathy if he'd a bite you. You stroke the other end, like I said. Yeah, well, so I was saying, so I went down the doctor's, so I told him I'd had all my teeth out. So he give I one a day antibiotic injections. Leave it alone now, Sandra, there's a good girl. And this here antibiotic injection, it had a side effect, and I did come out in a rash, yeah. Don't you touch it now, Sandra, there's a good girl. And this rash, it started between me shoulder blades, then it worked all the way down me back till it got to me back. There, Sandra, I told you he'd bite you. Then you get the other kind of lady who goes to the cinema every Thursday afternoon, no matter what film is on. I heard two ladies, one said to the other, been the pictures then, Floss? She said, yeah. She said, where's been? She said, well, I always goes down the Gaumont every Thursday with Mrs. Jenkins. And the other one said, oh, what's he down there this week then? She said, well, I don't know really. Hamlet or something? We never found out whether Hamlet was the bloke in the film or the bloke what wrote it or the manager, but we never liked it. Now, as our kid, true as I'm stood here, he don't hear no swearing home. Fred the swear, see, but not in front of he. But he come home the other night from school. I was ever so upset. He come home from school, see. I was in the kitchen, see, getting the tea ready. And he calls out, got the bloody tea ready, Mum? I says, you're. I said, that's quite enough of that, I says, you aren't having none of that language home here. You don't hear it here. You're not saying it here. And what's think? He turns round and he says, well, Shakespeare uses it. I says, I don't care if he do, I says. Don't play with him no more. So that's the kind of voice I shall use to show how a question goes right up at the end, whereas a statement only goes up a little bit. And here's a demonstration. Two ladies again. One says to the other, yeah, you knows that old chap Mr. Jones, 93, down the road, doesn't? Yeah. You know what's happened to him, doesn't? No, what? He been and got married again. Have he? So that's how your voice goes up at the end. Now, another peculiarity in Bristol is when you're dealing with the present tense of verbs ending in st, like the verb to post or cast. Let's take the verb to post. In ordinary English, of course, I post, you post, he posts, we post, you post, they post. The only different one is in the third person singular, he posts. But if you want to get full marks in Bristolese, it goes, I poses, you poses, he poses, we poses, you poses, they poses. If, however, you come from the Gloucestershire side of Bristol, of course you might be a bit contaminated by them, so of course naturally you would still get full marks if you did it the Gloucestershire way, which I'm sure you know is I depost, you depost, he depost, we depost, you depost, they depost. Now in some parts of Bristol, but not in all, there's a habit of saying, what's the date? I suppose this is because we say the 15th, the 16th, the 17th, so we say, what's the date? Now, Bristolese vocabulary is made up almost entirely of monosyllabic words, and most of the words are these: a, o, u, and e. You can carry on a whole conversation just with a. It really is a little bit like Chinese. It depends on which way you say it. You know, you go It all makes a difference. Now, as you can imagine, if you carry on a conversation just with it does get a bit monotonous. So men, but not ladies unless they're very common, men usually put a swear word in again, occasionally, just to bounce the r's along a bit. I heard two navvies and they'd just been having a row and they decided to stop rowing and get on with the digging. So one of them put his shovel in the ground and the ensuing silence was a bit embarrassing. So he said, The other one said, what's mean, He says, what I says, bloody The other one said, well, why didn't you say so first going off then? You can also carry on a whole conversation using all the words o, u, and e, and it does make sense. I'll show you how it goes. There were two navvies, and one of them noticed that the foreman was drinking his tea when it wasn't a tea drinking break. And the foreman was over the other side, and he wanted to draw the attention of his friend over here to the foreman over there, who was drinking this tea when he shouldn't be. And the conversation was completely monosyllabic, and yet it does make sense. It went like this: yer, were, there, ooh, e, o, Now, I'd like to tell you a little story which is absolutely true about a little girl in a primary school in Bristol. Now, in the scripture lesson, they'd had the story of Adam and Eve, and the teacher said to them afterwards, now I want you to rewrite the story of Adam and Eve in your own words. Now, it doesn't matter if you put in something which wasn't actually in the Bible. It doesn't matter if you don't spell it properly. Put in anything you like, but get the main story correct. So this little girl actually wrote an essay on Adam and Eve, and she actually spelt it in the Bristol accent, if you know what I mean. And it went like this. And God said to Eve, hast thee touched any of they apples then? And Eve said to God, no, I never. And God said to Eve, come on here, don't give her any day lies, now I'm asking on you, hast thee touched they apples? And for the second time, Eve said to God, honest, I never. And this is the clever bit the girl put in. So God said to Eve, all right then, if thee's never touched they apples like what thee's telling on I, what are all they bloody apple cores doing lying over there then?